In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about standardizing footage, specifically using Adobe Media Encoder to get all of your footage into the same format and bitrate. So why would you do this? The main reason is that it's easier on the computer when you start editing. We have a whole variety of different file formats that we're dealing with, from different cameras to the computer that we use to capture footage in Studio A and B, also the record deck in the Mini Studio. These all generate different file types, which all have different codecs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So before you edit, you want to make sure that all of your video footage is the same file type and the same codec so that it's easier for Premiere to work with. So first I want to talk a little bit about file types and codecs. So there are a whole variety of file types out there. They range from MP2, MP4, AVI, MTS, WMV, MOV, FLV. So we have a whole bunch of different file types, and basically when we're standardizing it, we want to bring all these different file types into one file type. Inside the file type, or inside the container, is something called a codec, and that stands for compression decompression. And I'm not going to get too far into this, but there's a whole variety of codecs out there, and you'll see here's a Wikipedia page of just the number of codecs that are out there for video. There are codecs for audio, and there are also codecs for images. So we've talked about file types and we've talked about codecs. Now let's get into the practical side of standardizing for a variety of types of footage. Adobe Media Encoder is a really great program because it reads nearly every kind of file type and codec, and then you can use it to output to a different file type and codec. When you open up the program, there are a couple of windows here. There's a queue window, and this is where you'll be dragging your files. There's the preset browser, and this shows a list of different presets that you can use to export your footage. Then there's the encoding window, and when you hit play in the queue window, you'll see whatever is currently encoding. And then there's a watch folder. I'm not exactly sure what this is. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the preset browser. There are a whole variety of different presets loaded into Adobe Media Encoder. For video, I typically go to TV broadcast. I use H.264. And then this is a good format that I use for video. It's HD 1080i 29.97 frames a second. The codec is H.264. Here's the frame size, and here's the bitrate, 32 megabits per second. You can also create your own preset if you'd like to reduce the bitrate here, or change the codec or the frame rate. You can create a new preset based on this preset by clicking the plus button, and then by changing all of these attributes. We're not going to get into that today. I've actually created my own preset for editing, so I would recommend either using this preset or using the preset that I've created for you, and you can download it with this link. So if you want to add a preset to the preset browser, just click Import Preset, then click on the preset. It's an EPR file, and click Open, and then it'll appear here in the preset browser. So this preset is based on the preset that I just showed you, except it has a lower bit rate. It's 15 megabits per second. this will give you a little bit smaller of a file, actually less than half the size of this preset, because the maximum target bitrate is 15 megabits per second instead of 32. It'll still look really good and it'll work in Premiere very well. Okay, so now that I've talked a little bit about presets, I'd like to show you how to standardize your footage. You'll see I have a couple of folders here. I have some footage from the Mini Studio and I have some footage from Studio A. If I click on the Mini Studio footage, it'll take me through a variety of folders to get to the actual video clips that I've recorded in the Mini Studio. So I'll go through that with you. So double click on Private, then AVC HD, then BDMV, and then Stream. And in the Stream folder is where all of my video clips have been saved. So I have this folder open. I'll go back to Media Encoder. And then I'll simply click and drag this into Media Encoder. And you'll see that the file appears here. MTS is a file type that stands for Media Transport Stream, and it's the file type that the Mini Studio record deck records in onto SD cards. It's not a very friendly file type to edit with. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so I have two files that I've dragged into the Q panel here. Now I'm going to do the same thing with some footage that I recorded in Studio A. So I'll open up my Studio A footage. Here it is. I'm just going to click it and drag it into the Q panel. And you'll see here that this is an AVI file. And AVI stands for Audio Video Interlace. It's also not a very friendly file type to edit with. So you'll see that it defaults as NTSC DV widescreen. We're not going to edit in this preset. So what I want to do is I want to take the preset HD 1080i 29.97 editing. I want to take this preset and drag it on top of the footage that I want to encode. And you'll see that it appears here. So I'll do that for the other two. And since we don't want an NTSC file, we can just select that and then push delete on the keyboard to delete it. The next step is we want to define where it will be saved. To do that, you click on this link and it'll open up a dialog box that says Save As. And then you want to navigate to your external hard drive and then into your project folder and into your video folder in your project folder, and then you click Save. And we'll do that for the other two files. So we have our three video files. We've defined the correct preset, and we've defined where the new video files will be outputted to. So the last step is we simply push the Start button. And what it'll do is it'll start encoding. And you'll see a little preview bar here, and you'll also see a preview of the video in the encoding window. So with that encoding, I just want to review a couple of things. For your presets, you want to have an HD 1080i file with an H.264 codec at somewhere between 15 and 32 megabits per second. 15 megabits per second is generally a good bit rate for editing and for output. Okay, you'll see that this is still encoding here. And then when I go to my hard drive, I now have these newly exported files that are all the same file type and the same codec. So I can start my Premiere project with footage that's all the same type.